Jack here, M43Powersports.com, 517-925-8154. I'm going to go over a quick video from start to finish on how to replace a stator cover on the side of, this is a 2011 Hayabusa motor. With the popularity of clear covers coming into play, and pretty much anyone being able to purchase tools, we're getting some calls on covers where they're having leak issues on them, and I just wanted to go over some preventative maintenance if you do try to attempt to put your cover on yourself, some things that you should look for so you will not have to take your cover on and off multiple times trying to cure a leak that could have been prevented in the beginning. These bolts here are all held in with 8mm. Almost all the Suzukis and ZX14s that we're doing, the factory bolts are either going to be a 5mm Allen or 8mm. So pull all the bolts out of the cover. Now, depending on how long your cover has been on, the gasket surface between the cover and the engine, it's going to be stuck. There's also a magnetic pull from the stator around the flywheel, which is going to hold this cover up against it either. Some come off real easy. They do have tabs, so you can put some type of pry bar in there and actually pop it off. Which this one here looks like it's going to come off without even a screwdriver. Yeah, which it did. But when you pull it off, you definitely be able to tell it feels like there's something hanging up. As soon as you get it where it feels loose, the only thing holding it on is the stator, that magnetic pull. So gently pull it off. What you'll also have is dowel pins. Make sure these pins go back in. Crank position is set off this sensor, and without these dowel pins in, the cover could be slightly one way or the other, which could set the timing off, and in some situations actually keep the bike from running. Make sure your full engine gasket surface is completely free of all debris, all leftover gasket, any oils. If you are doing a clear cover replacement and you do have brake cleaner or contact cleaner to clean the surfaces, make sure you do not get it on the lens on the clear covers. It will cloud it and it will destroy the lens, which will cause you to have to do a replacement. This being a Hayabusa, we're using part number 1148324F like Frank 00, which is the stator gasket. Which I'll set it up on the dowel pins just like that. It's a good idea with some of these covers, just gently tap on the dowel pins and just make sure they are bottomed out. A lot of these covers being done on a CNC, they don't have the precise locations like the castings of the factory covers. So if tolerances aren't checked, you'll have dowel pin holes that might be slightly off, or if they're chrome plated, which is a big issue, the holes themselves will be full with nickel, copper, and chrome, which will keep the dowel pin from going all the way in, which even if you tighten it up, jammed on the pin, it'll keep the surface from being pulled down all the way flat. You'll have a stator inside, which is the 3 bolts here, and then the position sensor. These are going to be 5mm, these are going to be 4mm. So I'm going to pull these 5 bolts right out now and replace the sensor and the stator in the clear cover. So just bear with me for a second. That's my 3 stator bolts out. My 2 sensor bolts, and then I'm going to show you when you pull the sensor out, you'll see underneath there is a tab right there, which actually keeps the wires from being caught up in the flywheel. If you have an LED cover, there has been some issues with the wire running through here underneath this tab being too tall, where you've actually had to trim the tab to hold it back, or in some cases when there was multiple lights put in, actually remove the tab, which is definitely not recommended. This tab's in here for a reason. It's to keep the wires out of the flywheel area, which will keep the stator operating correctly. So do the best that you can to get this protection tab back in there without bending it or modifying it. If it causes you to have to break the wires loose for the LEDs right here to actually push them back down on the bottom, it definitely needs to be done. So I'm going to pull this out. When you have the rubber wiring that comes through the stator cover, a lot of guys will just put a little lip of silicone on there. As long as the surfaces are dry and the rubber's good and not brittle or cracked, just pushing it back in there without silicone has been sufficient. I haven't had any leak. Most of your oil is all down on the bottom. When it's running, you'll get some oil slung up in there, but there's not a whole lot of pressure as far as the oil leaking out of there. So as long as the surfaces are clean and the rubber looks good, I would put it in with no adhesive at all. There's a notch on the back of the stator, which is right here. Almost all these covers have a notch in the cover also. Make sure they're aligned when you put the stator back into the cover. I'm going to put my 3 stator bolts back in. And then the protection tab and the 2 position sensor bolts. On these bolts too, when you put them in these covers, they are billet aluminum. You have to start them by hand and straight. If you try to use the tool to start them or stick them in and they strip or go in sideways, you could result in a destroyed cover. And it will happen very easily, believe it or not. So make sure you hand turn in each one of the screws in here and don't use a power tool or ratchet to do it. Okay, so I have the protection plate back in, both the screws started in. Now I'm going to tighten the 3 stator. The torque specs for these, I believe, are right around 7 foot-pounds. They are in the manual. The manuals are online if you need them. If you can't tell how tight something needs to be done without stripping it, you probably shouldn't be doing it at all, but that's what the specs are for, and they make tools for people that can't feel the actual tightness of the bolt and the integrity before it breaks or strips. So I got clean gasket, clean surfaces. This one's an anodized cover, so the dowel pin holes are clear. If you have a chrome cover, you have to check the surfaces. You get nickel, copper, and chrome down, you're going to get heavy sections on the side where it's going to be a non-flat surface, or you may have some bubbling on it. You may have to take a Dremel and clear off the surface, but it has to be perfectly flat and clean. Dowel pin holes have to be open. Once they get to that point and you're satisfied that it's perfectly flat, then you can go ahead, slide the cover on. Watch your fingers, because the magnetic pull will suck it right into the engine. If your fingers are in between, it'll definitely get you. Hear that pull? That wasn't me. That was the magnetic pull pulling it down. These covers come with different bolts. There's a reason for that. It's usually a length issue. Go through, put every single bolt in and start them just a little bit. Once you get every single bolt started, then you can go around and start tightening them in. If for any reason, when you're turning them in by hand, something doesn't feel right or it does not start and turn in 2 or 3 turns, you have something in the way, or possibly some coating overlay in the holes, whether it be anodizing, powder coating, the machining just being slightly off. So if it doesn't pull in and everything doesn't start, figure out why. Don't use the bolts to pull the cover in. It will leak, you will break something, you will not be happy with the outcome. I sell these clear stator and clutch covers. 517-925-8154 if you guys have any questions about install or need gaskets or other items to go with your custom bike. That's what we do here. This is one of our black anodized stator covers, and then on this side we have the ball cut clutch cover. Slide the cover down so you can see it. I have them ball cut, chrome or black, all smooth black or chrome surfaces. 517-925-8154. Check us out on the web at m43powersports.com.